everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Poker News podcast. It is your girl, Sarah Herring, joined by the two best gentleman podcast hosts that I know, Jeff Platt and Chad Holloway. That's messed up, actually. I know there's a lot of podcasts.
Why is it messed up? Why is it messed up? Come on. I think it's a strong statement, but an accurate one. Chad, you agree?
I have, I concur. No disagreement on my end.
Okay, so for everybody who's watching, if you can just please let us know, send us the comments. Is it bothering you that Jeff is going to stand the whole episode?
The whole time.
I feel like he's getting ready for a fight or something. I'm not sure. Jeff, can you please explain what's going on here?
Yes, so I was getting a little tired, a little restless. This was not meant to just rub it in towards Auntie Chardonnay, considering she can barely stand at this point in time. But just wanted a desk where I could stand if I wanted to. So this moves up and down very easily within a matter of seconds, can be seated, can be good to go. But figured, I try it out, have an energy drink, no free ads, but this Uptime energy drink is fantastic. Again, no free ads though. And so, we race it up and we're going to go standing mode today. I've got an anti-fatigue mat. Yeah. So just, I can't get tired with an anti-fatigue mat.
Yeah.
Really.
Little known fact, I have one of those in my kitchen. Still get tired.
No, come on. It says anti-fatigue right on the mat. There's no way you can get tired.
It's a jump to conclusions, Matt. I don't know. All right, you guys.
Is it Sarah? Is it possible that maybe you stood so much in the past that weakened your leg and ultimately led to your injury? So
these are just things to consider, Jeff. Yeah. Okay.
Standing can be dangerous.
Yeah. Standing can be dangerous. Walking can be dangerous. I will tell you guys, the Poker News podcast family, I had my first sort of real physical therapy day yesterday in earnest. And I'm feeling really a lot better about things. It's still very, very painful and stiff. And I can't say stiff without thinking it's funny.
There goes Sarah.
Yeah, thanks. But
Sarah for the podcast.
There we go. Good. Missed me, guys. But I'm telling you, I was walking yesterday with one crutch and less awkwardly than before. And so I feel like now we're down to one crutch. We're 50% of the way there. I genuinely feel like by end of next week, I'm going to be walking at least on the boot. And so thank you, everyone, for all of your love and prayers and support and tweets and all the things. I very much appreciate it. And we're gonna get moving.
Wait, Sarah, was the actual physical therapy session pure torture? Was it max pain or no?
No. You know what's so crazy is actually this exercise I've been having to do at home were way harder and way more, I think, just painful. And maybe it's because it was the first 2 weeks and now I'm easing into it a little bit, but actually they have all these cool toys and things you can use that I think make it a lot easier versus, taking a towel and wrapping it around something and tugging on it, or I've been trying to do all these things from home that are it's just cool when they have all the, it's like going to the gym where they've got all the machines, it's just easier. It's better. And actually, what was really surprising? There was all these people there. Well, specifically these two other women who were there, and they were basically I'm not going to do that. Or you said 30, but I'm just going to do 5, or trying to leave early and stuff. And I was like, what planet are we? You guys realize
what's
this
the point?
Is you, right? The physical therapist doesn't need this. If you don't do 30, it's not going to hurt her feelings, but this is for you to get better. I don't know. I was actually kind of wow, maybe I'm going to be the best physical therapy student ever, because I was I'll do 50. I'm going to walk again. Let's go. And also because you guys told me about Alex Smith, and once I saw his injury, I realized this is nothing. I'm going to be fine. I really appreciate you guys keying me into what a little biatch I was being, because now that
I don't think we said that.
Leg was falling off. I'm surprised he even has a leg still. After I saw those pictures, I threw up a little bit in my mouth and realized let's put our big girl panties on and let's do this deal. Speaking of putting our big girl panties on, though, is that Buddy?
Yeah, that's Buddy. Always gets excited during the Poker News podcast, just is so revved up to talk about some Phil Galfond, some Fedor Holt, some Scoop. Just loves it all.
We've got a ton of juicy stuff going on, you guys. And I really enjoyed the interview with with Fedor. So we'll get to that soon. He's always great to have on the show, but I feel like because of the quarantine, we were kind of able to talk about a lot of other stuff that he has going on in his life. And I just feel like someone with such a brilliant mind like his, it's just great to get into knowing how does Fedor view these kind of things. But also, I don't know if you noticed a couple weeks ago when I made the video for the podcast, I did include your battle with the bird. I was hoping for a slight update and just to make sure, like, are you okay now? Are you and Buddy doing okay on your walks?
Yeah, so quick refresher, for 3 straight days when Buddy and I were just on our normal walk route, this bird, a very territorial mockingbird, would basically take some dives at me. And I didn't want people to think that I was just going crazy and imagining all this. So I decided to record it on the 3rd day, knowing that I was going to avoid the tree that the bird was mainly protecting and just stay far away. And I heard it chirping at me and I was like, oh boy, here we go. And it attacked for a good minute and a half, got out of there unscathed, thankfully. And then just Sarah and Chad made the permanent decision to just stay away from that street overall. We just completely alter the route. We have not been attacked by a bird since. I will admit, whenever a bird flies kind of sort of close to me, I might jump just a little bit, might still be a little scared of the birds, but overall, we are doing good. No attacks to report over the last couple of weeks.
And this has nothing to do with your standing desk or like your anti-fatigue mat.
I don't know. When I'm not fatigued, I'm less susceptible to attacks because the bird can't sense that I'm tired and can't come after me. So I credit really the mat and the standing desk for all of this.
I'd say soon you might want to just go back and check on things and see if this guy's ready for you.
Soon, maybe within a couple months. Yeah, maybe that's soon.
There is another, though, battle going on in the city of Sin, and one that I am just watching, like, with my hands together, super, super excited. This has been hysterical, in my opinion. And obviously, we're talking about Carolyn Goodman and Doug Polk. So I want to say a week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, Lynn Gilmartin sent me the video of Carolyn Goodman doing this interview and just said, is this for real, Sarah? Like, as someone from Las Vegas, please tell me, like, what is going on? Watch the video. I thought this is definitely there's gonna be a lot of little snippets of this that are gonna find their way along the internet. Extremely viral. For those who missed, we've got Carolyn Goodman on Anderson Cooper, as well as she's done several other, a nice little circuit of interviews where arguably she does not come off particularly intelligent. And Doug Polk, as a citizen of Las Vegas, and in fact, I didn't realize, but Doug Polk's family is from Boulder City, which is just right outside the city of Las Vegas. And so really, like a true Nevadan at heart. And he has issued and is attempting to recall the governor of Las Vegas. And maybe Jeff, as now a Las Vegan, you can talk a little bit about what the general consensus is in the old city of Sin with this battle.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough, Sarah, because Polk, long story short, is a couple months to get a petition signed by 25% of the voters from the 2019 election. So that's about 7,000 people or so. I think the problem is that he's having trouble finding these voters. I think he needed to find 3 or so just to get this whole recall effort started. And he struggled with that. And this is Doug Polk, a guy who has, hundreds of thousands of followers on Twitter, a guy who, sure, he doesn't live in the city of Las Vegas, but he lives at Henderson. So he's surely close enough. And I think he struggled with that for a while. Now, sure, this is receiving more mainstream attention. I mean, I think Chad sent us an article from Yahoo News, and the Las Vegas Review-Journal is on it, and the local TV stations are on it. So that'll help, certainly. It's just, it's going to be tough for him to find these people to sign this petition to really put this recall effort into place. And I think that is what is going to hold Polk back in all of this. Only 27,000-ish people voted for mayor in this last election. Like, it's just going to be hard to find people, Chad. I think that's going to be his main issue moving forward.
Yeah, I don't think there's really a shot that he's going to get the required signatures, but I also don't think it really matters to him one way or the other. I don't think, I'll call it what as I see it. I don't think Doug Polk is doing this out of any sort of civic duty or legitimate concern for the future of Las Vegas. I think Doug Polk is doing this out of publicity, a little sensationalism, a little drama to stir the pot. He's seen an opportunity with this Carolyn Goodman interview with Anderson Cooper. It was a train wreck. I can relate. It's like me doing this podcast with Sarah. I put up my hands like this all the time. But, I think he's seen an opportunity, and, he said, let's have some fun with this. He's trying to transition into more mainstream things, more mainstream politics, and this was a great opportunity for that. And so, from my perspective, he's trying to, garner a little publicity, get his name out there in that realm, and, more power to him. This seems to be a good cause to latch onto. I just think, the chances of success are pretty slim, but, he can ride it for a while at least.
It does kind of look like, hey, when I run for fill in the blank position, when I run for congressman, when I run for mayor, when I run for whatever in 2, 3, 4 years down the road. Oh, well, I fought to recall the Las Vegas mayor, back in 2020 during the coronavirus pandemic. I think that's something that, he's certainly thinking that he could add to the resume.
Yeah, I think if he was going to take this really serious, and maybe, I don't know what he's done behind the scenes or anything like that, but you would think that instead of just trying to have this grassroots movement, you do that while also combining it by reaching out to maybe other local politicians, others who have more of a local reach, that you can work those networks to get the signatures required. Because like you said, it was actually a pretty small number that voted for mayor of Las Vegas. And you got to remember that all these suburbs of Las Vegas, like Henderson and Summerlin, they're not Las Vegas proper. So if you live there, I've got many friends who do, they don't get a vote. They can't sign up on this petition because they don't live in actual Las Vegas. So it's a pretty small pool when you really think about it. And if you don't have any connections there, it's going to be hard to go fishing in that pool.
I think there's two things in watching the video, one thing I thought was interesting, though, is he did definitely pull at the heartstrings, right? When he brought up that his grandfather had died of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which many people think was associated with a lot of the testing that they were doing in Nevada. For those who don't know, they notoriously did atomic testing and then told everyone it wasn't a big deal and take it easy. And not a lot of responsibility was taken for that. And Carolyn Goodman definitely took some very bizarre train of thought where she somehow was associating this with, and I guess for those who have missed it, I failed to say, basically what Carolyn Goodman is fighting for is to open up the casinos of Las Vegas, and notoriously said that they could use Las Vegas as a control group, which is certainly crazy. I'm sure Jeff can agree as a Las Vegan, that is insane. But that being said, I did a Poker League of Nations Facebook Live Q&A yesterday, and we were talking about all of the casinos that are opening, of which we should talk about Rosvedov, but also there's casinos in apparently Washington. Apparently there's some casinos in the Midwest that are opening. And I'm definitely curious, what are your guys' thoughts when most of the world is looking at Carolyn Goodman as insane for wanting to open up the casinos in Las Vegas? Mm-hmm. And yet we're seeing casinos open other places. What's going on?
I think, for me, Sarah, I think that we can look at the casinos on the Strip and just kind of applaud how they've approached this, because they've gone very slow. And sure, some are different than others, but as far as the main corporation ones are concerned, MGM, Caesars, it doesn't seem like, or at least they haven't stated that they are in a rush. And they've also worked really hard on their reopening plan and how they'll kind of start to phase visitors in. And I read MGM's reopening plan today, or at least the highlights of it. And, I'm pretty impressed with it. And it'll start with, opening just a couple casinos at a time. We'll only let a certain amount of people in. There will be temperature checks at the door. We'll keep social distancing the best we possibly can in a casino. And I think, it's a common misconception that because Carolyn Goodman is the mayor of Las Vegas, that she effectively has control of these big time hotel casinos on the Strip, which she does not, since that's, again, all a technicality, like kind of Chad was mentioning, that it's just not a part of the city. It falls under Clark County guidance. It falls under Clark County leadership of sorts. So these casinos are not going to take their cues from Mayor Goodman. They're going to take their cues from Governor Sisolak, who I think has done an incredible job in Nevada. And if you compare the numbers of Nevada to other states throughout the country, I think he's done great. So when he gives them the green light, they will take that green light and run with it, but they'll do it in phases. And MGM hasn't publicly released this, but there are some rumors going around that they will open up a couple casinos at a time, and they'll take things very slowly, so slowly, where Aria might not open until September of 2021. Think about that Aria doesn't open its doors until September of 2021. So I think everybody in the gaming industry is kind of looking at those Strip casinos, and we'll just see how it plays out. Chad, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, outside of Las Vegas, you're seeing more and more rooms open up. I know there's a Prime Social Club in Texas has opened up with, they've got some procedures in place. They're going to be playing 6 max, which is going to be more than, what is initially going to be allowed in Las Vegas, which is 4 max, which, that's a whole nother conversation, whether or not that's going to even be appealing and really feasible. But, I look at these places opening, and I get it from an economic standpoint. With casinos especially, they're such huge employers in Las Vegas. You see it a lot at the various tribal casinos throughout the country. A lot of these, for instance, there's a tribal casino about 10 minutes from me, huge employer around this community. So you multiply that countrywide, and you're looking at tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people who have their livelihood tied to these casinos. So I see why casinos are anxious to get back up and running, at least some of them. And but I mean, for me, as somebody who spends a lot of time in the casinos, I am in no hurry to get back to them. I see the procedures being put in place. I don't want to go through getting my temperature checked. I don't want to be put in a plexiglass area on a blackjack table and things like that. And I think there's probably going to be a lot of people in my situation. Don't get me wrong, the casinos will certainly get people who are there, they want to play, they got that itch. But there's those of us who I think are prepared to just say, all right, I will be back at a casino, I will be playing poker live, but I'm in no huge hurry to do so. I'd rather just wait, let things pan out and not rush back. And I don't know. It's crazy because I think from this point forward, we're just going to see more and more casinos and card rooms open because it started. There are ones that are reopening now, so they're going to think, we got to get in on this too.
And it's interesting to me. So Rozvadov obviously is one of the casinos that's just opened, and there's been, pictures of the masks and sort of a list of all of the procedures that they're using to, try to prevent the spread. But especially to me, especially a casino like that, which is almost exclusively frequented by people who are traveling from abroad to get there, right? Basically, nobody lives in Rozvadov. I shouldn't say nobody, but very few people live in Rozvadov. And so, especially even with the sort of slowing down of travel the way that it's been, and with, for example, countries like the UK, which are outnumbering now Italy, I'm just having a hard time understanding how this could ever be seen or viewed as like a safe idea, A, and B, who's going? Who are these people that are like going there? Is anyone actually there?
It's a great question, and I think they are certainly going to struggle with attendance when you compare attendance to just normal numbers, say at the beginning of 2019. But if you look at the very last couple of days here in Las Vegas, before everything really, really shut down, government mandated, hey, you have to close these doors, the casinos were still absolutely packed to the max. And so I think once the door opens at some of these places, the 3 of us might not be going, but I think plenty of people will go in. And Chad mentioned it. Here in Nevada, the Nevada Gaming Commission said once the casinos reopen, poker can be played, but with a maximum of 4 players per table. And I would just be extremely surprised if any Las Vegas poker room decided to open up and play formats. I just don't see how economically that works. I think that'd be too expensive for them, especially with the new cleaning procedures that they would have to put into place. I certainly see slots coming back, blackjack, craps, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Poker's, already kind of bottom of the barrel as far as casinos are concerned. So I'd be shocked if we saw a poker room open up really before the end of 2020.
I think you're going to see some Vegas rooms will open and try to spread formats, but I don't see, because there's going to be people, they're the degens who they just want to play. They don't care if it's Formax or what have you. But just because it's Formax, I think a lot of people out there are thinking, okay, that could work, probably under the assumption that they're going to be paying lower rake. Now, I don't see that being the case. I think that it might very well stay the same rake because from, the card room's perspective, they still got to make money. They're going to be having floor staff there. They're going to have dealers there. Like you said, they have new procedures. So they need to keep their revenue up. So they can't go from raking $5 down to, say, $2 or something and still, maintain that level in the budget. And so, I mean, you can't play four-handed and beat, a regular rake. And so just from the feasibility from a player's perspective, it's not very plus EV. From a casino operator's side of things, if you can't lower it, with all the staffing costs and things like that, I think a lot of rooms will shy away from it, and I think some will open, but it might be 2-3 tops throughout all of Las Vegas. So that's just my guess.
Clearly the movement right now, and a lot of what we were talking about yesterday in the live chat is online, and poker we're lucky that poker is something which can very easily transition online. And basically that's where all of our eyes have been for the last couple months. And I think also where they will continue to be for the foreseeable future, including, but not limited to, of course, right now we have the Scoop going on, which we want to get into and talk a little bit about that. Fedor also talks a little bit about that and what's been going on with him, the WPT. And really, even before this whole coronavirus craziness, for the most part, I would say we've all been watching and paying attention to Phil Galfond. So let's first give a big thanks to Run It Once, who's been our homies for many, many months and been supportive of the PokerNews podcast. And then also let's get the latest update on the Galfond challenge.
Yeah, I mean, major props to Run It Once for what they've done over, I guess now the last year and a half, maybe even 2 years, just up and coming. You got to figure it's so hard to start an online poker site in this day and age, but that's what Phil Galfond has done, and he's done it to successful reviews as well. There certainly are friends at the podcast, like Sarah mentioned. In fact, you can go to once.run/pnpod for an exclusive deposit bonus. Again, for our PokerNews podcast listeners, an exclusive deposit bonus on Run It Once. It's once.run/pnpod. Unfortunately, especially for the three of us, you cannot play Run It Once if you reside in the United States of America. You can play, though, in plenty of other countries. One more time, it's once.run/pnpod. And when we get to this Galfond challenge, Phil Galfond undergoing two at the same time. He's taking on Bill Perkins, and he's also taking on Action Freak. And I believe they've played a little bit on Party Poker and a little bit at Run It Once as well. And Phil Galfond got out to almost a 500,000 euro lead. Action Freak has closed that gap. They're playing 15,000 hands total. They played about 6,500 hands. Galfond now leads by about 178,000 euros. There is a side bet. That side bet is worth 150,000 euros. So we are approaching the halfway mark of this challenge between Phil Galfond and Action Freak, and props to Action Freak for at least beginning the steps of a comeback.
Yeah, it was a big start for him earlier this week on Monday. Action Freak won more than €250,000, 256,000 euros in just 721 hands. So it looked for a while that Phil Galfond was going to just keep extending his lead, but this big chunk on what was day 9 of their challenge really, seems to have swung the pendulum in Action Freak's favor. And I'm excited to see where it goes from here, whether or not Galfond rebounds or whether or not Action Freak pulls the Galfond and takes over the lead.
Well, it's interesting because even in this interview with Fedor, he mentions, so Fedor, in fact, as we know, started Poker Code maybe 6 months ago, maybe a little more than that. And it was intended to be a training school. It's now also partnered with GG Poker, basically creating a skin using the software of GG Poker to create their own site. And Fedor mentioned just how difficult it is really to create your own poker site. And he gave big props to Phil Galfond for, you know, operating with such integrity. And Fedor mentioned how it's really opened his eyes to a lot of other levels and layers within the gaming space, what it takes to really create a successful, really to create a successful poker client brand is, it takes so much. You have so many people to please. And he speaks a little bit about that, but he also speaks to, outside of just saying, yeah, okay, Phil Galfond is a total boss, which I think everyone knows, he chose to partner with GG Poker and really sees GG Poker as sort of the future of online gaming. And we've got another boss in our midst who also has famously now partnered with GG Poker. And let's just hear what Real Kid Poker has to say.
What's up, people? Dean Eggs here. As you may have heard, I signed on as an ambassador for GG Poker, and you may be wondering why. Well, the key reason is the product, okay? They have the absolute best software on the market, not just the desktop, but also for mobile. In addition to that, they really have invested into this GG Masters, right? It's a $150 buy-in freeze out. You know how I feel about freeze outs. And there's also a big carrot at the top. Leaderboard prize up to $500,000. Each and every week so far, there's been added money. So come get yours. Use sign-up code PokerNews.
So now that Fedor has partnered with GG both as an ambassador and merging his training school poker code with GG Poker, I was super curious to see what he expects this to look like, what he anticipates from this type of partnership. And also, let's get real, just like, what is Fedor Holtz doing now that he's semi-retired? He's been playing a lot of poker and still crushing it. He answers the question, which I also was extremely curious about, which is, how do you pump the brakes and stay at the level that he's at and still be crushing as much as he is? And he does explain that. So let's just, without further ado, get to Fedor Holtz. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another live Q&A. I am with the one and only, the man that is Fedor Holtz. Fedor, how are you, my dear?
Hi. I'm pretty good, actually. I've just been outside, so feels good.
I feel like we have a fully new appreciation for just being outside and all the little things, although I think that's something you've probably appreciated for a long time.
I never cherished my terrace as much as I did the last 2 months.
I'm telling you, like, just going to the park is like the highlight of my day now. And I hope I can continue to carry that with me for a long time into the future. Now, Fedor, the last time we spoke, I want to say, was this summer, and you were really involved in building, I want to say, like a collective of sorts. It was, you know, you were sort of talking about bringing together all sorts of brilliant minds and artistic people, science type people, just bringing together a collective of people to sort of build a community. And I thought it was a wonderfully idealistic but also needed concept. So where are we on that project at this point?
My life changed a lot, actually, 2 months ago, roughly, with Corona. So I was about to sign a lease, actually, a pretty long one, for a pretty big place here, and I haven't yet. So right now this is basically on hold. So the main thing about it was I was looking for a location where we can host it and obviously bring all the people together. And we were about to launch a restaurant in there as well and host a lot of events. And so yeah, right now everything regarding that project is just on hold.
How lucky though, huh? That you didn't get yourself
both.
committed.
It's kind of both. On the one side, I think obviously lucky that I could not sign, and on the other hand, I'm kind of wishing I signed and then, you know, would have to figure it out somehow. because now obviously it's, it's everything is kind of slowing down and postponing and looking for other opportunities. And yeah, sometimes I've in the past I've made the experience that I get creative when I'm, when I'm in it, when I'm committed, then I have to find solutions to make it happen. And I think I would have found solutions here too, but we're going to look for other opportunities now.
So that is something, obviously, you're always involved in tons of projects. You've got your hands in lots of things. And the other thing that we were talking about a few months ago, which has actually launched now, is Poker Code, which, for those who don't know, can you just kind of bring the PokerNews fam and audience up to speed with what Poker Code is?
Sure. So Poker Code started with the idea that I've been asked oftentimes the question of if I could teach people, or what I would suggest to learn from. And there are a couple sources and people out there that I think create great content, but I really wanted to have or like share what I've learned, share my experience. And I've been thinking about doing something like that for over 3 years already, because I've coached a lot of players and I wanted to pass on my knowledge or what I know. And that was the starting point when I talked to Matthias, and he has such a synergetic, nice fitting mindset to how I think, because we think very different, but yet are both pretty good. And I think that's such a, I really enjoy that when I meet other people and they're really good at the game and they think so different and they have a different approach, and he's more rational and more mathematic about the approach, and I'm more intuitive and a bit more fluid, I would say. And I think I'm probably a bit better than to adapt in some situations, maybe also play exploitatively. And I think he's really good at the fundamentals of the game and the learning process, a really hard worker. And when I talked to him, it became really clear to me that I want to launch a course with him and share both our knowledge combined to give other people access to that. And that's the Poker Code. And we launched it so we produced that course. We put actually like hundreds of hours into it, produced it professionally with like 10, 15 people involved. It was a lot of work actually. And then we had the course and this platform. We wanted to make it kind of like a Netflix experience, so that you can go on there, you have different lectures in shorter lengths, and you can go through one, and they're all separated in different channels. So you have pre-flop and post-flop and advanced topics. And that's the platform and the course itself. And then we realized in that process, like, hey, we observed how people used it and got listened to the feedback and listened to the people and asked them questions. And then we realized, like, hey, we want to actually engage more with them. We want to guide them, support them on their journey. And we started building a stronger personal relationship with the people. And then this developed into a pretty strong community now, which is really fun. So we do roughly once a week now, we do coachings with all the community, and basically the best players in the game, like doing hand history reviews and sharing their experience, and you can post hands and discuss anything basically. And yeah, so that's been going well, and there's a lot of fun. And now we launched our own poker skin basically, or poker site, in collaboration with GG last Sunday. And so now we branched out.
Wow. Okay. So
it's a lot of information to process.
No, but I think, of course, obviously the best thing that you can be doing, when building a coaching site or when doing everything, is looking at the data, right? Looking at the data. What do we need? What do people want? So that's super exciting. But did you guys fully from the beginning have the intention of having your own site, or is this something that's just sort of emerged organically?
It definitely emerged. We didn't think about this because I think we're quite aware of how much work it is and how much just how much energy goes into building it. So, I mean, since we have, to be honest, like, they did the heavy lifting. We're not, we didn't build a software, we didn't do anything on a technical side. So it's more that we can use the existing, especially the player pool. That's the hardest part, right? Building a player pool from scratch is so much more difficult than jumping on top of on the existing bandwagon. So our idea is more like, how can we have a positive impact on an ecosystem, on an existing environment, and be this connecting piece, or this middleman as well, to, on the one side we have a direct connection to the players and understand the players very well, and on the other side we have a direct connection to the management and the owners of GG Poker, so we can communicate with them. Like, I'm basically now, we're chatting constantly back and forth about, you know, things that don't go so well. How can we improve them? How can we bring solutions? Like, what are issues? Because there's constantly things coming up, obviously, with so many players playing, and yeah, I want to address them and then look how we can improve them.
Wow. I mean, honestly, I think for most people, when we were talking about the concept or the idea of a training site that was started by, or at least co-founded by you, people were extremely excited. And I also always get the question, where should people go to learn, to learn poker? And I think what's so interesting is that what most poker players will tell you is that the best and most important aspect of learning and growing your game is building your community, is making those friendships. And so would you describe Poker Code in its evolution now as a place where people can develop these friendships and sort of foster those essential relationships?
Oh, for sure. I think it's a matter of your mindset and your openness. If you're really willing, I think we are a place that really fostered that. And it really depends on your willingness. And some players don't like it that much. Some just rather prefer to learn by themselves, or have their own way of learning. And some really thrive in that way. I'm more a person that thrives in interaction with others. I really prefer talking to others and bouncing ideas back and forth and discussing different topics. I just feel it gives it such a deeper perspective, and it's multi-dimensional, and there's so many different views on things. Yeah, if you enjoy that and if you learn that way, I think I think we're a really good place for that, because we're very responsive to that. So if you invest and you dig deeper, like we're there and ready to go.
So let's talk a little bit about the relationship then with GG. I did a Q&A with Elke last week, and he actually explained some things about the client itself, and clearly how much they've worked on the software, but the staking platform which exists within the client. And definitely there's some things that you can tell this was designed with poker players in mind and exactly what they're looking for. Now, when you see the ambassadors that they've brought on board, you, Daniel, Elke, it's definitely, the sort of cream of the crop, I would say. But then you are in a unique position with Poker Code, then having a relationship with GG, I guess in another way. You're in bed with them, I guess, in another avenue. So let's talk a little bit about your relationship with GG and why this partnership, both personally and with Poker Code.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the synergies are just very clear. So I think over the last 1 or 2, especially the last 3 years, I wasn't really sure about how I fit in there. I wasn't really willing to travel or play full time anymore and travel all the time. And online, the environment was really kind of dying, actually. Like, wasn't really games anymore. And GG was small. Like 2 years ago, GG didn't really get the same player pool that it has today. And so I kind of saw a dire future for online poker, and I'm pretty enthusiastic actually about what's happening now, like the environment as a whole, but then also about GG Poker and our collaboration, because there's something about, I think a really relevant part is the incentive of people involved. And for example, to give some credit where it's due, I think like what Phil Galfond is doing, I think is incredible and very honorable. And I have lots of respect for Phil and just everything he does basically. But not everyone has that incentive. It's like, let's actually, let's listen to all the people, and let's make the most sense of this, and let's look for the optimal solutions or the best possible solutions. But then also the thrive and the energy and the resources to actually pull that through and make it happen. And so I've been talking to the people at GG quite a lot now, and it's very refreshing how they perceive the game. And some things that at first sight for me didn't really make much sense, I'm also learning a lot new things now. I'm getting to know the economy better, and I'm understanding the ecosystem better and how different things interact. And a lot of things were had as a pro, as someone who has been making money with the game, and I have my preconceived perspective and preconceived notion about how things should be and what's fair and what's not fair. And then the deeper I look into it, I'm understanding, it's like, oh wow, there's a lot more to it. It's a lot more complicated than like any of these topics. If it's rake or how it's spent, or promotions, or security, or customer support, or the software itself, or the offer, or the games. Like all these topics, it's easy to take a stance of just being very simple about it, being very binary and very radical and extreme. It's like, this is bad, this is good. It's more complicated to constantly improve the system and really try to get to a point where it's combining all these different perspectives, and it's constantly trying to iterate and improve it. And I'm very excited about this collaboration, because what I experience as very positive is their speed of iteration as well, and their openness to listen and discuss topics. Like, there has not been a topic where we weren't able to openly discuss all different perspectives. And then if we agree on something, it's immediately implemented. And then there's also things where we disagree, but at least there's an open discussion and communication about it. And I think that's very, very important. At least for me, that's a very important part, that there's going to be mistakes. There are going to be things that don't work, but we and I want to communicate it openly and be transparent about that process.
I'm super curious, Fedor, about we're in such an interesting spot just in the world as a whole, but I think poker is in a really interesting spot. And even at PokerNews, we've seen, signups and traffic in ways that we haven't seen in years and years. So I do think specifically right now, but really just for the future of poker, what are some of the things that you're seeing and some of the ways that you feel hopeful now about the poker economy?
I think what we should focus more on is the experience of individuals. I think this is at the core of the game, is that as many people have as much of an enjoyable experience as possible. And it's different for every individual, right? Like, there's pros who mostly are interested in making money of it, obviously also play for the competition maybe, and there's lots of factors that go into it. But then the big bunch of players maybe play for fun, or play it on the side, play it as a hobby, play it with their friends, and so on. So I think we have to look at a variety of different people and their incentives. And if you do that, it becomes a lot more difficult to make a choice, right? Because it's like, now if you look at one group, it's really easy. It's like, okay, this whole group wants this one thing, but then you have 5 other groups and they all want different things, or they're interested in different things. And now how do you make choices in that regard? And I think what is a big issue in the environment is that oftentimes choices have been made on the basis of how can we make the most money, and not on the base of how can we create the most enjoyable experience. And I really truly believe that you will be financially profitable if you create a great environment for people to have fun and enjoy the game. And that's also what I'm going to be looking for and advocating for is to bring in my perspective and share my view on where I think we can improve that and how we can optimize that, and bring in all these other perspectives, because now obviously I'm in more I get more feedback, and I'm in more conversation with players as well that they don't have the same perspective as I. They're not playing high stakes, or they aren't professionals, and now that's brings in a totally different view. And I think a lot of pros would be surprised, because I believe we live in that kind of bubble where we are pros, or we play on this level, and then the people we talk to share that view, and they're also pros and they're also playing that level, and then you hear the same opinion 15 times, but you forget about, or sometimes forget about, the opinion of the other 50,000 people who maybe aren't and don't play on that level. And I think that's really important to take that into consideration. And I think a lot of what GG is doing is catering to that, is not catering to the 1 or 5% professionals, but catering to the 99% who play for fun, and that will upset some people because they have certain expectations. And I think now it's about finding the balance, like how can we optimize that? Because obviously it's great if everyone is happy and everyone's having fun, but then it's also about making choices, and I think they've been doing a good job in some things, and I think they can improve in some other things, and I'm excited to help them with that.
Well, tell me a little bit about, Fedor personally at this point. So you sort of famously said, I'm going to pump the brakes a little bit on traveling the circuit all the time and, going to every tournament and being everywhere. And let's talk a little bit about, you've got your hand in a lot of projects. What is the balance of your life at this point? How much of a role is poker playing in your life? What are your days looking like, both pre and now in quarantine?
Very different. So I would say, as a quick sum up after poker, the biggest change has been that I was kind of on reset button. So I was okay. I don't want to play full time. I was like 3.5 years ago after the summer, and as you said, put a foot on the brakes and just like, okay, let me take a look at that. And I think what happened then is I started a lot of things and committed to a lot of things and took on a lot of responsibility. And I wasn't realizing how much this can compound over time. So it's basically, let's say I took on, 5 different responsibilities, and then at this point it was manageable, and I was like, okay, 5 different things, I can manage that. At this point I can also manage it if it grows a little bit. But then let's say 2 of them become a little less, and then 3 of them grow somewhat exponentially, and then suddenly I'm at a point where I'm like, oh wow, I can't even fulfill one, or I feel challenged by 1 of them, but I can't ever handle 3 of them. And this was kind of the thing that happened over the last 4 years, is like I invested in a lot of companies, I started companies, I was still traveling, I was just in all these different areas, and I've realized, hey, wow, this is too much. Like I can't commit, or I committed to things that I can't fulfill right now, and I need to set this straight. And that's basically what I've been focusing on the last 1.5 years, is communicating that and finding solutions to manage that. So not investing in more things, trying to get out of things, clearly saying, like, setting time horizons of reducing the time I spend in different things. And so it's kind of now I'm removing a lot of things, and what's left is it's becoming more simple. So this quarantine was kind of a very extreme speed up of what I've been doing before. I was like, I was at home, so I didn't travel. And my main project, building the space that you mentioned, is kind of on hold right now. So now I just had all this time in my hands. And the 2 other projects that I spent my most time on besides the community space is Poker Code. So I've been spending more time there, working out the collaboration with GG, and the other one is actually a fashion studio here in Vienna. So I've been spending more time there. I started learning how to sew and created some pieces myself. And this was kind of a nice side thing to get out of the house and actually physically do something. I think that helped me a lot stay sane. And then kind of I started playing poker again, and games have been big, and I actually had a lot of fun in this combination of with the synergies of all these things. So I can play, and there's, you know, we have this community in the back, so people are railing me and we communicate about it, we post about hands, I'm talking more strategy with my friends again, and so things kind of fell into place for it to just be a lot more fun and more enjoyable for me again. And so I've been playing about 3-4 days a week now, and that's, I can tell, my limit already. So yeah, this is kind of how my schedule looked like. It's kind of daylight business, having phone calls and going outside, being in the fashion studio, and then at night I play. It's kind of like the Batman cycle.
I was wondering, even when you said, okay, I'll be free on Friday evening, I was thinking, oh, most poker players are just going to be like, Scoop's going on, I'm not available ever, I'm just going to degen and play every tournament I can. And yet I see that you're doing really well in Scoop, also what the things that you are playing. So clearly what you're doing is working. But that is something I wanted to ask you about, because I think at the level, you know, of play that you are at, most players would say that pulling away from the game even a little bit, or even having one other side project, is just not enough to stay so sharp and be at the very best level. And yet you just took second in like a high roller a few days ago. Clearly you're still able to manage at that level. And do you think that that's partially because of what you mentioned before a little bit about this intuitive play style and just this ability to sort of shift in whatever game you're in?
I think it gives me an advantage in the sense of I'm probably a bit sharper after taking long breaks, because it's less about distinct memory and more about abstraction and vague memory. So I'm not remembering, like even back then I never really memorized specific solutions, but rather just try to learn how to find logics that I can apply to any situation. And these logics I still remember. So it's more freezing my game rather than actually declining a lot. But the biggest thing is obviously other players are getting better. I could very clearly tell that, I mean, you have to, it's literally similar to that, where I'm playing, you know, now in 2020, and when I started playing, I was probably at a similar level than when how I played in 2017. And in 2017, that was probably pretty good. But now in 2020, people had 3.5 years time to study and get better and, you know, learn new things. And that's big. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of new things you can pick up and learn and improve and get better. And that's really the biggest thing that I can tell is I probably got slightly worse in the beginning. And then I think given all the things that are out there, like now I'm catching up, because, you know, these people that are better, I can bounce back and forth ideas with them and I can improve. And then I think now I'm at a better level than I was before. So that's a good progress. And then on the other hand, obviously, there's just more players that pass me and that are better than me.
Still humble, guys. No big deal. Well, speaking of sort of when you very first came into the game, I was wanting to ask you, because I think the very first interview that I ever did with you, you had just come back from South America and you had donated, I think you gave away a lot of money that you'd made online, and you were helping to build houses, and you expressed, even then at such a young age, how important it was for you felt like, to give back. And I think that's something that's very clearly been seen throughout your career, if you will. And so I wanted to sort of get your take now, as you've continued to mature and grow, on how you yourself are wanting to give back, and what are some of the ways that you perceive as effective ways to sort of contribute to the world as a whole.
I really truly believe in that we as individuals do better if the system does better. So that the best for all of us is the best for each part of all of it. So if everyone's doing well, you're doing better. That's what I believe in, and I can see that oftentimes, and I experience that oftentimes. Is I think that's the best way for it to be and to understand, is if I don't think selflessness per se exists. I think people do things for others because it makes them feel good, or it helps them, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's great. I think it's a level of consciousness to not differentiate between me and you anymore, but it's more like it's all interactive and it's all connected in some way. It's maybe not really visible, not describable, or not rationally. I can't write it down, I can't quantify it, but it exists in my belief, at least. And so that's why if I look at something like money, and if I realize like, hey, if I limit it to my universe and me, I don't really gain so much from having X amount of money more. If I have $1 million more, like it's not really affecting. Like even now in quarantine, I could tell, it's like the basic of what makes me happy, or what I need is, a place to stay at, good food, that I have freedom to go outside, like, and a good social surrounding. And it's like this way I could live without even thinking about anything much further. And if I think about that, then it's like, okay, wait a second, but it doesn't work like this. It's not only me, but if I give that money to some other purpose, then this might be even more valuable than keeping it and just like for some future potential risk or my own safety or whatever. And so that is one of the main reasons why I do that, or why I care about that, because I think it's better.
I mean, it makes sense. I think it definitely makes sense. And I think it colors and shapes a lot of the things that you do and are involved in. It's very clear. And, speaking along those lines, the last time we spoke also, you had mentioned sort of your realization about the importance of food. That's also something that you just touched on. And I think that's also something that, especially now, for example, we're seeing a lot of people turning to gardening. I think a lot of people are, even in the United States, for example, there's been a lot of issues in the meat packing plants and things like this. I think this one interesting side effect of the quarantine is that people are gaining a lot more awareness about their food, where it comes from, the process of getting it, how it even gets to the stores. And since you're working on building a restaurant, or that seemed to be one of the big things coming from this collaboration that you're doing and building, what are some of the fundamentals and some of the things about that restaurant that are so essential and inspiring to you?
I have to start there. It's not my I'm super passionate about the topic, but I'm not the person driving it. So it's an amazing person. His name is Jacob. He's also a friend of mine, and he comes from he has a background in food. He worked in a Michelin star restaurant and worked in some other restaurant as well, but his background as a food stylist, just really, really awesome chef, like amazing. Like he's one of these people where you give him 3 potatoes and he makes, a 3-course, absolutely amazing meal. And basically the idea is to not so much with a goal or like we want to reach this. It's more like, hey, how would we approach this? If we would look at the whole cycle, how would we do it? And there are a lot of things of like, oh, wait a second, how we would do it is so different to how almost everyone else does it. Is we, for example, would only take food from people we know, and it's like people we work with. So everyone we work with here is regional and is local, and we know how it's made, and we know where it comes from, and we know the people personally, and it's all seasonal because we believe that it's just more sustainable, healthier. So this whole cycle, we want to know, like literally from the start of it, how they treat it and how they think and what their values and perceptions are, till the point of how do we treat it then. We do a lot of sprouting and miso and lots of, with different cultures and hundreds of different things. We just started, actually, we have a little shop actually now that we opened through the quarantine, where we get the vegetables and products from the farmers, and then we sell it in our shop, and people can pre-order, and then we basically put the basket outside and you can pick it up. So we did that. We just kind of did our mini garden project, launched that. We put in the seeds like 2 weeks ago or 1.5 weeks ago. So we have that. We have a little garden as well. And this is basically just how we would do it, is, like get the food from the farmers. He would produce it and just make some amazing meals without much of a menu, without, just like what's there, make it, make some great food, and create an experience that is not typical, but that we care about.
I love that. And I hope to see this shift on a much bigger scale. I hope that's what's happening. And I know you have things to do in your whole life, but you did mention that you have been making some pieces and that you're also invested in the fashion, which is so funny because in some ways I can see how that's connected to living this more sort of sustainable, organic life, right? Is understanding your own clothing and how you clothe yourself. But then on the other side, you can look at the fashion industry as this often sort of toxic, terrible part of this consumer element of the world. So talk to me a little bit about this fashion project and how you see it as a part of your, worldview as a whole.
So there's one really simple base to it, and that's I just really enjoy the creative process of it. It's just super fun how you design this whole thing. You have this living thing that you design something for, and there's so many elements about the material and how you go about this whole thing. If you change 1 centimeter here, then the arm falls a bit lower, and every body type is different. Every person is different. So this whole creative process of, you have an idea of something that you would like to create, and then I see that more as art. You have this image in your mind, and you try out different things, and you do something, and that's the essential, or one essential thing for me. And then on a more societal level, it's fucked up. It's really fucked up. It's this whole thing of, and I don't mean it in a blaming way. It's more like, wait, I observe and I'm like, wait a second, this is silly. Like, this is really, really silly. We pay, hundreds of euros for clothes and have way too much, and it doesn't make sense to me. That, like, I looked at it, and the deeper I looked, I was like, wait a second, all this, this doesn't make sense. It's not, I can go there, and I literally learned how to make a hoodie in a day. And I'm not the craftiest person. I'm okay. And you can buy fabric in a store here for 10 euros, let's say 15. And you can come and you can sit on there and you can make your own piece in half a day. You could make your own, you could buy whatever you like, and you can just make it. Obviously, it's a bit more complicated than that, because you need the pattern, you need the design. Obviously, this has been pre-done, so we've done that already. We have the pattern, so you just have to cut it out. But in essence, if you put in your time, and it's something super cool to learn. It's just, you can make your own shirts and your own pullover, and it's I really enjoy that enjoy that activity and this thing of like, hey, I'm wearing something I've done and it's not terrible. And I'm just thinking of like, how cool would it be if we could all do that, you know, like you could just make your own stuff. And because it's so cheap and it's so easy to make and it's a lot of fun to make, and we don't need to buy, you know, $15 shirts from H&M or and they, you know, they buy fabric in wherever, and then they ship it to Vietnam, and then they make it in Vietnam, and then they ship it back, and it's just like, whoa, this is crazy. And then obviously the next level of you buy, you know, Balenciaga for 1,000 euros, and it's the same 10 euro fabric, and for them, because they buy 100,000 of meters, it's like 2 euros, and then they have someone producing this in 5 minutes in a mass production somewhere in Pakistan or Bangladesh or Portugal or wherever. So I look at this and you're like, okay, wait a second, you produced this for 5 euros, you stole you squeezed a little designer for this design, and you sell it for 1,000 euros. And I'm like, I can't. Like the moment I started digging deeper into that and understanding the producers and the fabrics and how it works and so on, I was like, oh, there is no quality difference. Like the quality of this fabric is that there's nothing, almost nothing better about that. And so I've been rambling a bit now about this topic, but like it's something that was one thing that I've experienced for myself. It was like, hey, okay, this could be cool to show an alternative in.
It's not rambling. The people want to know what we're busy with, what's going on in there. And I do think it's so interesting, because I was just reading something last night, and they were basically saying, you know, if you told like our ancient ancestors that our problem wouldn't be getting food, it would be that we are obese, right? That our ancient ancestors would be like, what's obese? And we would tell them, you know, it's like, we're overweight, we have too much food. And they'd be like, yeah, we want to be obese. That sounds great. Like the problems that we have because of the direction that the world has gone, and because of the way that our lives have moved, our lives have become infinitely easier in some ways, but also infinitely harder in other ways. And I do think I can really see, especially now as people are having more time, I know several people who have started experimenting with making their own clothing, and especially because people don't know where it came from and don't want I think people are understanding fast fashion now and are worried about the, you know, people in Bangladesh who are making the clothing. But also I know so many people who have started microgreens, you know, little mini gardens in their homes. And I do feel like in some ways, as far as we've gone in one direction, feels like there's some sort of a pull now to go back a little bit, to know the things you eat, to know the things you wear, to even the things, I know people who now are experimenting with making soap and just all the things. Just, it really feels like there's a shift in consciousness, and that maybe as horrific as this whole experience has been with this disease, especially, that being home more and being more connected to understanding our food and our clothing and things like that is giving people the space and time to experiment more with that. Maybe
one of the biggest changes for me personally has actually been the connection to the thing itself. So when I eat food, for example, I used to throw away a lot more food earlier. That's one big change, is I appreciate, and like the whole experience, I appreciate it more. I'm more careful with it. I taste more of it in general. I'm just more aware of it. And the same is true actually for my clothing now, where I'm thinking more about how I can fix it rather than, you know, giving it away or throwing it away. It's just like, I can just, you know, take it, I can fix it, and, you know, like even be creative a little bit, make it my own. And you know, if there's a hole, I just put something else over it and make it my style. And that's a level of also putting in the time. That's, if you know, if you made a piece and you took 5 hours to make it, I treat it a lot different. I'm a lot more cherishing that I have it, and also appreciative of it, and I'm more careful with it. So that changed a lot of positive things for me to just be more involved in what I'm doing.
That makes so much sense. That makes so much sense. I can totally relate to, versus the idea of, oh, this, you know, thing was $10 and who cares, and throw it away and get another one. When you are invested in it, really invested in it, then it changes the whole value.
And it's something totally new for me. I would say there's almost no point in my life where I learned that or experienced that, or it was this whole thing of, you know, like really from start to finish doing these simple things. I'm missing a lot of connections because of that. It's really like there's such a big difference of any example of if it's food, you know, like seeing how pigs or cow grow up and how they're being killed and how they're being butchered and like how they come to you and then eating it or killing it yourself and then cutting. These are things where my whole perspective on this whole thing changed immediately. It's when I've never heard about, or then I go there and then I see, it was like, wait a second, that's how they die? Like that's what happens? I'm like, that's not so much from like, oh, I'm ethically punishing people now or blaming them if they eat it. It's more like, oh, wait a second, for me now, I wasn't aware of this. Something changed. I was like, I don't really care so much about it. I actually don't really like it that much. And if that's the case, then I don't really need it and don't want it. And these are a lot of things where I didn't change my mind because of social pressure or kind of an agenda, but more of like, hey, wow, I experienced it. And then I created my own, or came up with my own logic. I was like, why should I buy any, I did buy expensive clothes. I have some designer clothes. Like I don't want to go out there and blame anyone who does it. It's more like for me did it. And then I saw the opposite. And I was like, wait, I can do something cooler that's more fun and better quality, and it's mine. And then the purpose of this whole other thing just vanishes, basically.
I love that. Oh my gosh, I love that. All right, well, I know you have to move on with your life. You have lots of things on your plate and lots of things going on. But for those who are listening, and for anyone who doesn't already follow you or follow Gigi, where can they find you? Where do they, you know, tap into the life of Fedor?
Yeah, so as a little shout out, so we're building poker code with GG right now. So if you want to sign up, you can go to pokercode.com/play. If you want to learn more about poker, pokercode.com. Just join our community and like check it out. See if you like it. I think for a lot of you who want to improve at the game or want to play on GG, the games are really good. I think the software is fun. Just test it out. And besides that, if you want to stay up to date, just follow me on Instagram. It's my name, Fedor Holz, or on Twitter @CoronaGuy. I think these are the main channels where you can find more about me. I'm going to post my journey throughout the next 2 weeks craziness where there's 100 million guaranteed on GG, just like games every day, really, really soft games as well. So yeah, would be really awesome if you support or join us on that path.
I can't wait to see the journey of the next 2 weeks. All right, well, thank you so much for joining me, and thank you everybody out there also for joining us on this little mini journey with the one and only Fedor Holz.
Thank you, Sarah.
Well, we've been talking a lot of GG poker the last few weeks. I've been reading a ton, interviewing players, and I definitely can get the hype. But on the flip side, we got to be real. PokerStars has been holding this down really since the beginning. Since I've been in poker, PokerStars has been the main hustle and the side hustle. And all of their online series are always huge. All of them are generally very successful and people look forward to them. But I think especially in the time of COVID, the numbers have been really exciting. Chad, you want to talk us through a little bit about some of the big numbers and big events to come out of Scoop the last 2 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, PokerStars and Scoop have been sort of dominating the headlines here recently, because Scoop is just and always has been one of the premier online events throughout the years. And what we've had, I think, is the Poker Masters recently wrapped up. And so I think we've seen just a lot of those players immediately jump into the Scoop events. And that's why we're seeing a lot of big names winning early events, because in past Scoops, it usually would start a little bit slower, and then the big names would start winning some titles later on in the series. From the get-go here, though, we got off to a quick start. Just some names that have been shipping titles. Connor Drynan has already won 2 events in this Scoop. Gives him 3 overall. I'm going to butcher this name, Sarah. I know you're going to correct me on it. Is it Joao Vieira? Joao Vieira. There you go. You guys get it. You guys interview these guys. You have to say their names often. I just write it. I just need to know how to spell it.
You're
so.
good.
But he won his 4th overall Scoop title. I believe Mustafa Kanit, a former Scoop main event champion, won a title. Another former main event Scoop champion, Talal Shakirchi, won a title. Oli Shemian, who I know, Sarah, you used to have that man crush on. You used to, yeah, we used to talk about that on the EPTs back in the day.
We'll talk about it on the podcast also. Let's
there
hear
you go.
Everyone knows.
He won one, and then Adam Owen, Connor Beresford, Benny Glazer won his 5th Scoop title, tied for 3rd all time. So, yeah, Jorrit Van Hoof. I think he was the only player to play all of the Poker Master events, right? And he had some success. He's got Scoop success. I mean, he's got to be one of the hottest players on the online poker scene right now.
Yeah, that guy, man, the cleaner, like Chad said, old school legend as far as the online game is concerned. Then finished 3rd in the 2014 World Series of Poker main event. Then kind of sort of took a step back, at least from the live poker ranks, still playing online here and there. Dove into the high rollers with the best of the best over this last year and a half or so, and has just been absolutely crushing it since.
I've always been a big fan of the Jorrit. He was so fun to watch at the final table, the stare down, the beard, the whole 9. And I think I have a special place in my heart for the Dutchies. I think I'm going to be talking a little bit about what we're calling Value Town. So we'll be talking once a week in May at some of the tournaments that we think are going to provide the most value. So for those who are listening, who are, out there and are able to play in these various events, 888, GG, PokerStars, all the big online clients, we want to talk a little bit about the Value Town segment for this week, which is in fact a Scoop event. It's the Scoop 59 PKO. Progressive knockouts are very popular in general and on PokerStars, but we wanted to pick out this one in particular. The PKO fields have been huge this Scoop, with 3 events attracting over 40,000 entries so far. And on May 13th at 19:30 GMT, 7:30. That's why I did that. You see how I did that? I just go into my military times. At 7:30 GMT, 19:30 GMT, they're gonna have, and I love how PokerStars does this, right? It just gives you the low, mid-range, and high stakes version of all the tournaments. So they have an $11 one with a $50,000 guarantee, $109 event with a $250,000 guarantee, and a $1,050 event with a $300,000 guarantee. So again, that Scoop 59 is our Value Town pick of the week. And not just Scoop though going on. Gosh, you guys, there's so much going on. The WPT and Party Poker just announced an extension of their tournament series, correct?
Yeah, not just an extension, but they went ahead and said, let's double the guarantee for the series. That's something along the lines of what Scoop did. Scoop started as $85 million guaranteed over their events, which is amazing. They went ahead and ramped it up to $95 million. I think part of that is because, Sarah, to your point earlier, GG has come on so strong, guaranteeing $100 million for their crazy World Series of Poker circuit series, that the other online operators felt that they needed to step up, and there's some real competition going on right now. We know that Party Poker has partnered with the World Poker Tour for WPT Online for an actual World Poker Tour championship event to be played on their site. There's a series of events surrounding that main event, deep stacks included, the closer is included. So I think Party Poker and WPT does a really good job at listening to the players, because they heard some things about the schedule. They moved some things around while the series was taking place. They're just always willing to listen, always willing to make some changes. And now that it's moved around, it looks like a pretty perfect setup, a pretty perfect schedule. And again, $30 million guaranteed for this WPT online series on Party Poker.
I've got it on good authority as well that the PokerStars Scoop will be extended as well. I think there's some details coming out on that, and if they do, we'll have it on PokerNews.com. Am I the only one who is not really a fan of these extensions mid event? To me, it's you got a series, and then all of a sudden, let's just extend it 2 more weeks and add all these events. And I guess with online poker, it's easy enough to do that. But can you imagine if there was? I mean, look at the World Series of Poker when they added the 1 high roller last year, and how that was this bombshell in doing that in the live realm. And can you imagine if the World Series comes along and this fall, if it does happen, and they say, hey, we've got 30 events. Well, attendance is better than we expected, so we're just going to up that to 45 events. I don't think that would sit particularly well with a lot of players. I guess you probably just don't have that same perspective in online poker. And I'm in the United States. I don't get to play online poker, and I don't have a horse in this race, so to speak. But every time I see one of these extensions, I don't know. I'm not happy about it. I guess I'm like, oh, really? They're gonna keep it going.
I guess it is something where you could just say, hey, we are going to close this series, but we'll start a new series, in 2 days. That's what WSOP.com here in Nevada and New Jersey have done a good job of. So they had the spring championships in April. The turnout was fantastic. And they closed off the series when it was supposed to end and said, okay, starting at the beginning of May, we're going to have the Money May series, which is basically the exact same thing as the spring championships were. So I certainly see Chad's point, especially when it comes to something as prestigious as the World Series of Poker. And that is where messing with it, tweaking with it, especially mid-series, I don't like that at all. I think this Party Poker WPT thing, for me personally, is fine. I think that was more reorganizing of events. So they didn't really add anything. They just extended the whole schedule by moving events to later than the main event. But if Scoop is going to extend, to what Chad said, I think I'm fine with it just because it is online and it doesn't carry that same weight, same prestige as, for example, the World Series of Poker does.
But you're right. I will say one of the things that I think tends to happen in the poker community is once we see one company or one tournament series or whatever make a movement, whether it be towards rebuys or towards freeze outs or towards big blind ante or whatever it is, it's sort of, we see this waterfall and cascade. Once one company does something, I think a lot of them tend to do it. And so I do think when we see 1 or 2 companies going this direction, we can just kind of anticipate or expect, well, it's going to be extensions for all now, just everyone get ready. And that has plenty of implications. And I think just like everything we've really discovered, especially with this virus, is just how delicate all of the ecosystems, from economics to health to everything, how delicate all the ecosystems are. And so, when you start making these shifts, like you said, we added 1 tournament last year and I made 6 videos about how that was changing all the fantasy things and should it be included and not included. And really every little thing has these, cascading effects. So I see that. And speaking though of all of the little things that have cascading effects, you guys are both involved in on different sides of, but the Keeping the Lights On campaign. So let's start, Jeff, first. Where are we? What's an update? How's it been going from your team's perspective?
Yeah, so this is the 3rd and final week of the Keep the Lights On Challenge. It's an initiative to help cover some bills for our friends in the poker media freelance world. Chad knows a lot about this, but if you're a live reporter, you're freelance, you had your whole year scheduled out. I'm going to travel from Florida to Vegas to LA, et cetera, cover these tournaments. Obviously, all of that just gets ripped away from you. And because they're freelance, they aren't under the umbrella of a company for any future income, for any benefits. So Tana and the Run Good team came up with this idea, and they've teamed up with Poker Central and with Global Poker to raise some money to just help these people out, just to cover some bills. It's been a tremendous success. I think we've already raised more than $30,000 when the original goal was $4,500 or so. From a personal standpoint, Sarah and Chad, I would like to do a little bit better. I have cashed in 4 tournaments out of 20, and every extra cash means more money for this Keep the Lights On fund. That is fine. That is not great, but Jamie Kerstetter and I are well behind Global Poker's representative, the Golden Blazer, Brian Frenzel. He has 1,050 sweeps coins from a starting bankroll of 300. Jamie and I are in like the 150 to 200 range. So at the time of taping this podcast, it's my final day tomorrow. It's on PokerGo's Facebook stream. That is Wednesday, May 13th, and I need all the help, all the support, all the run good I can get. But I would just like to credit Poker Central, Global Poker, Run Good for putting together this effort. And then our guy Chad Holloway deserves a lot of credit also, along with people at the World Series of Poker and the World Poker Tour, for effectively laying out how this fund will be distributed. And Chad, I don't know how many people you've heard from, but hopefully we've been able to help out a decent amount.
Jeff, let me start by saying that you have nothing to be ashamed of. Your 4 cashes are about 4 times as many as any of us thought you would get. I had the over/under at 1.
Okay. Thanks. Thank you.
No,
Yeah.
You're right though. This has been a tremendous campaign. Honestly, it's gotten a lot more money than I initially thought it would. A lot more, and that's thanks largely in part to, as you mentioned, those of you who are streaming, those who have come together, and then also a special shout out to some of the poker pros who just made big donations. Phil Helmuth donated $5,000. Brandon Steven donated $7,500. It was very cool for me as somebody who's been in the poker media for a long time to see that support from the pros and just to see the support overall. Now, this is for those who have been impacted by the pandemic and are out of work. Fortunately, that doesn't apply to me. It doesn't apply to a lot of us, but it does apply to many, many people. And many of them have reached out to me. And I'm happy to say that, they're going to be getting assistance with their utility bills, maybe some other bills that fall in that category, like an internet bill, cable bill, things like that. And the good news is, we kind of thought this might be a one-time thing, but because of the amount of money raised, it looks like we might be able to help for a month, maybe 2, maybe beyond that. Depends how many people are there and dip into the fund. But yeah, it's been tremendous. I know Run Good Gear put out a hoodie. I got one. It was $50, but all the proceeds went to the fund, and they've pretty much sold out, at least out of poker player sizes. They have small and mediums left, but not many poker players are small or medium. They've sold out of all the rest, so that was cool to see. It's very cool. It means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to members of the poker media.
It's totally not surprising to me, actually, and it's just something that I'm just always impressed with in the poker world and the poker community, and something that it really showcases what our community is about versus what I think people tend to associate. Even in watching the Carolyn Goodman interview, and people just associate gambling with such a different type of person than the type of people that I think we know and see as part of the poker community. And having been in a few other industries before I came into this industry, I have to say it is extremely, I think, unusual how generous and charity oriented the poker family is. And even when we look at all the things, Gavin Smith's kids, or I'm just trying to think just over the last 6 months or a year, how many things we've seen. Eric Steinbach gave his kidney to somebody that, somebody's mom that he had dealt to. And I'm always really proud to call myself a part of the poker community. And as soon as I heard there was a charity initiative, during this COVID thing, I just thought we'll blow it out the water. Lynn Gil Martin just raised $100 and something thousand for koalas and stuff in Australia during the fire. This poker family, I just love you guys, and I'm really proud of you. Do you guys want to talk a little bit about, I know you both have a couple of interviews coming up in the next 2 weeks. Chad, I know, first of all, I was super, super stoked on the podcast from last week, but for those who are listening, they probably already know and have already heard it. What do you have coming up for us, Chad?
I'm going to be speaking with Hank Azaria, not known in the poker world so much as he's known in Hollywood. This is a guy who's been in many films, many TV shows, and probably most known for being a voice actor. Has voiced hundreds of characters on The Simpsons. Chief Wiggum is one of my all-time favorites, and yeah, he's just a master of the vocal arts, if you will. And he was part of the charity event that PokerStars recently had that raised over $1 million for charity, and it was chock full of A-list celebrities. We live reported it for PokerNews, and I got to do some of the updates, and it was really cool. One of my highlights for me was watching Bryan Cranston go heads up with Aaron Paul at their shootout table. So it was like the Breaking Bad, Walter White, Jesse Pinkman going head to head. And of course, Walter White, he gets the best of them. And it was just really cool. And there were little matchups like that throughout. You had big name stars like Edward Norton was in there. Jeff Garland from Curb Your Enthusiasm, one of my favorite comedians. Amy Schumer was there with her sister, was also playing. And it was just an incredible event. And it was won by David Costabile, who may not be a household name, but you might recognize him. He was also in Breaking Bad. He played Gail Bedecker. And he's also in Billions on Showtime, where he plays Mike Wagner, aka Wags. He was also on HBO's The Wire back in the day. So if you've seen a picture of this guy, you would definitely recognize him. He's a great actor, and he was very excited to win. And so I'm going to talk to Hank Azaria about the charity event, really find out, how he got all these A-list celebrities to play in the charity event, and how The Simpsons keeps predicting the future.
Thank you. That's the important one, obviously. And Jeff, you've got something we talked about a little bit last week.
Yeah, I'm going to talk to Maria Konnikova later this week, and we'll probably air that one in 2 weeks. She, of course, being the author of The Biggest Bluff, as she dives into the world of high-stakes poker with a man by the name of Eric Seidel as her coach. This is a very highly anticipated book. It comes out sometime this summer. Was fortunate enough to get an advanced copy. It is absolutely tremendous. I think I said this the other week, but I had really high expectations for it, and she just took those expectations and blew them out of the water. So I'm looking forward to catching up with her about not only writing the book, but just her foray into the poker world, and it's clearly something that she's fallen in love with.
I love Maria. I hope to love Hank Azaria. I'm feeling all kinds of good, you guys, about what we have coming up for the next few weeks. So you definitely don't want to miss it. And yeah, I just feel like we have a lot. We're super lucky in this poker community to have so much action to still cover and to have so many awesome things going on. I'm super grateful for really just this job and this opportunity. When I was on the Plan deal yesterday, everyone just was talking about, people who are dealers and their experiences, and it's really shifted a lot of people's lives in the poker economy. And so I definitely was just reminded yesterday how great it is to be able to do this podcast and to be able to catch up with you guys every week about all the things still happening in our world. So it's good to be with you dudes, and deuces.